My name is Renee Callahan. I am 34 years old, and this morning I watched my sister stand outside a courtroom she was not allowed to enter, filming herself cry for an audience that was never coming to save her. 7 months ago, I was standing in a hospital corridor at 2 in the morning, listening to my sister's voicemail greeting play for the fourth time while a surgeon waited for someone, anyone, to say yes to an operation on her 8-year-old daughter. My sister was on a resort balcony in Costa Rica. Her phone worked perfectly fine. I know that because while my niece was being wheeled into an operating room, my sister posted a photo of a fruity drink with the caption, "Finally disconnected." Everything that happened between that hallway and this courtroom, the accusation she made against me, the officers who showed up at my front door, and the thing I found wrapped in a dish towel at the back of her closet, is the part nobody in my family saw coming. Least of all her. Welcome back to Hartley Stories, the channel where quiet people finally tell the stories their families beg them to keep buried. If you have ever been the one who shows up while somebody else takes the bow, this story was written for you. Stay to the end, because the dish towel in that closet changes absolutely everything you think you know about this family. Comment where you are listening from, and subscribe, because you will not want to miss how far my sister was willing to go, or how far I was finally willing to go back. Let me take you to the beginning, back before the hospital. Back when I still believed my sister was simply careless, and not something colder than that. I live in Fall Creek, Indiana, in a small brick house I paid off with 11 years of overnight shifts. I am a pediatric nurse at the Regional Children's Hospital. I chart fevers. I hold small hands through IV pokes. I tell frightened kids the truth in doses they can swallow. It is good, steady work, and it suits people like me, the ones who stay level-headed while everyone around them is loud. Our father died when I was 14. My sister, Marissa, was 17. At the funeral home, our mother, Carol, straightened our collars in the mirror and said, "Smile. People are watching." That was the entire lesson our mother ever taught us, and the family never bothered to teach us a second one. From that day forward, we split the job of being a family without ever voting on it. Marissa performed us. I maintained us. When she was 21, I covered her overdue utility bill so the lights would stay on for a party she was throwing. When she was 24, I picked her up from a holding cell at 3 in the morning and told our mother she had been asleep at my place the whole night. When she got married, I wrote every one of her thank you cards because, in her words, her handwriting looked like a child's. I was the fixer. I believed for a very long time that keeping the peace was the same thing as keeping the family. It took a ruptured appendix and a hospital bracelet on an 8-year-old wrist to finally teach me the difference. Marissa's marriage lasted 3 years. Her daughter, Ava, arrived near the very end of it. The husband, a man I only ever met twice, was gone before Ava could crawl. That was the story we were handed, and nobody in this family has ever asked a follow-up question, because follow-up questions wrinkle the picture, and wrinkling the picture was the one unforgivable sin in our house. So when Marissa called me in April and said she needed a favor, I said yes before she even finished her sentence. I had been saying yes my entire life. I had no idea that this particular yes would end with me standing in a courtroom. Marissa dropped Ava on my porch on a Tuesday afternoon with one rolling suitcase and a hug that lasted exactly as long as it took her boyfriend to snap a photo of it. His name was Trent. Sports car, spray tan, the kind of man who looks at his phone the way other people look at a sunset. 5 days, Marissa said. A resort in Costa Rica, all paid for by Trent. You're a lifesaver, Renee. She did not ask if I was scheduled to work that week. She never asked. Then she was gone. And there was Ava, 8 years old, standing in my hallway clutching her backpack straps like a parachute harness. Here's what you need to understand about my niece. She is polite in the specific way. Children are polite when politeness has become a survival skill. She apologized before opening my refrigerator. She rinsed her own dishes without being told, then asked if she had done it correctly. On the third night, we were watching some sitcom where a television father burned a pan of eggs, and Ava said, without looking away from the screen, "Do dads always forget things?" Mom says mine forgot about me before I could walk. I kept my eyes on the television and told her some dads lose their way, and none of it is ever the kid's fault. She nodded slowly, like she was filing my answer away in a drawer that already had a great many answers in it. Later, washing dishes, it hit me how strange it was that in 8 years I had never once heard my sister say Ava's father's name. Not at a holiday, not in an argument, not even as a punchline. The whole family had simply agreed, silently the way we agree to everything, that he was a closed door nobody was allowed to knock on. I fell asleep that night thinking about that door. 2 nights later, I stopped thinking about anything except keeping my niece alive. It started as a stomachache during dinner. Kids get stomach aches, so I did not panic. But by 10 o'clock, Ava was curled up on my bathroom floor, and by 11, she had a fever and would not let me near the right side of her stomach. I have worked in pediatrics for 11 years. There is a specific kind of stillness that settles over a child who has stopped complaining because the pain has gotten too serious for complaints. When I saw that stillness in her, I scooped her up, grabbed my keys, and drove the 18 minutes to the hospital, with my hazards blinking the whole way. I called Marissa from the emergency room parking lot. Voicemail. I called again during intake, and again during triage, and again while they drew her blood. Voicemail, voicemail, voicemail. I texted her in all capital letters, emergency, Ava in the ER, call me now. The scan confirmed exactly what my hands had already guessed. Her appendix had ruptured, and infection was spreading through her abdomen. She needed surgery that night, not in the morning, and the surgeon, Dr. Okafor, needed a parent's consent. I was not a parent. I was the aunt. I stood in that hallway holding my phone, a trained nurse who knew every single step of the protocol, stuck helplessly on the wrong side of it. My niece was on a gurney, asking if her mother knew which room she was in. And then my phone finally lit up. It was not a phone call. It was a notification. Marissa had posted a new story from the resort. A cocktail sweating in the sun, her sunglasses reflecting the water, and across the bottom of the image, in looping cursive, one single word. Unplugged. I stood there under the fluorescent lights, staring at that word, and something in me went very, very quiet. Hospitals have a policy for exactly this moment, and I am grateful for it every single day. When a child's life is at risk and no parent can be reached, doctors may proceed under emergency authority. Dr. Okafor invoked it without any drama, the way good surgeons handle everything. But the front desk kept working the phones anyway, and somewhere around midnight, a resort clerk in Costa Rica walked a cordless phone out to a swim-up bar and placed it in my sister's hand. I was standing close enough to hear her voice through the receiver. There was music behind her. Someone was laughing. The charge nurse explained the situation, ruptured appendix, emergency surgery. Tonight, your daughter, my sister said. Fine, whatever they need to do. A second nurse witnessed that verbal consent and logged it in the chart with a timestamp, the way we are trained to. Here is what my sister did not ask. She did not ask which operating room. She did not ask the surgeon's name, or how long the surgery would take, or whether her daughter was scared. She asked exactly one question. She'll be fine, right? Kids bounce back. Then she said she had to go, the surgery ran long. The rupture had already leaked infection through Ava's abdomen. Peritonitis, a word that means the clock had been closer to midnight than any of us wanted to admit. I sat in the family waiting room in my own hospital's plastic chairs. On the wrong side of doors, I walked through every single shift, and I waited the way civilians wait. At 3 in the morning, Dr. Okafor came out, pulled her mask down, and I stood up so fast, the chair scraped across the entire silent room. She made it, Dr. Okafor said. We got lucky twice, and I have been a nurse long enough to know exactly what she meant by that. Ava came out of anesthesia small and pale, with a line in her arm and a drain in her side, and the very first thing she asked me, before water, before pain medicine, was, "Is my mom here yet?" I told her that her mother was far away and traveling was hard. It was the first lie I ever told my niece, and it was told entirely for my sister's benefit. Remember that, because I told a lot of lies for my sister's benefit before I finally stopped. The next afternoon, I called Marissa on video from the hallway outside recovery. She answered from a lounge chair, sunglasses pushed up into her hair, ocean spread out flat and beautiful behind her. I kept my voice level. I told her Ava had nearly died. I told her there was a flight out the next morning with open seats, and I had already checked. My sister looked at me through that small screen and actually scoffed. She's just being dramatic, she said. She does this whenever I travel. The doctors handled it, didn't they? That's literally their job. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I simply stared at her long enough that the video froze once and unfroze. Long enough that she grew uncomfortable in a lounge chair in paradise. Don't make this a thing, Renee, she said, and ended the call. I stood in the hallway of the hospital where I have spent my entire adult life, opened the notes app on my phone, and typed the date, the time, and exactly what she had said. I did not know yet what I was building. I only knew that somebody in this family needed to start writing things down. Ava spent 5 days on the pediatric floor, my floor. I traded shifts, and our charge nurse, Denise, quietly rearranged the schedule and never once made me ask twice. I slept in the recliner beside her bed. Every morning, my niece woke up, checked the door, and asked some version of the same question. Did you tell my mom the room number? Maybe she got lost. A hospital is full of professionals whose entire job is noticing things, and they noticed. The pediatric social worker stopped by with her clipboard and her gentle voice. Has anyone reached Mom? When is she arriving? I gave her the facts, and she wrote them down, and we both understood each other perfectly. My mother visited on day 3 for about 20 minutes. She brought a balloon, took a photo of herself beside the bed, and sent it to the family group chat, captioned "Our brave girl." On her way out, she squeezed my arm in the hallway and lowered her voice. Don't turn this into something, Renee. Marissa's doing her best. She's her mother. I would hear that sentence for months, from every direction, like a church bell that only knows one note. That night, Marissa finally texted me directly. I opened it standing at the nurse's station, absurdly hopeful, thinking flight number, arrival time, something. It said, Trent extended the trip. You've got her right. I looked at that message for a long time. Then I added it to my notes, walked back into the room, and told my niece another lie with a smile stitched onto my face. Ava was discharged into my care because there was simply no one else to discharge her to. I taped her follow-up schedule to my refrigerator. Wound checks, activity restrictions, the entire map of her recovery. Her school already had me listed as her emergency contact, because Marissa had filled out the form the year before and said, in her words, forms are exhausting. My life rearranged itself around a third grader, and I would be lying if I told you it felt like a burden. It felt like the opposite. I cooked real dinners. I learned that Ava hums while she draws, and that she draws constantly, always houses, always with big windows and smoke curling from the chimney. I gave her medicine on schedule, checked her incision the way a nurse checks an incision, and drove her to school with her seat warmer on because she liked it. She started sleeping with her door open. Meanwhile, 5 days in Costa Rica quietly became 10. A wellness retreat materialized out of nowhere. Then Trent surprised everyone with a stop in Miami, which my sister documented like a foreign correspondent, covering the war between brunch and sunset. All told, it was nearly 3 weeks before my sister's plane touched down in Indiana. Nearly 3 weeks after her daughter's appendix ruptured on my bathroom floor, she came home tanned, rested, and fully ready to be a mother again, on camera. I want to be honest about what I did when she got back, because it matters later. I did not confront her. I did not demand an apology. I handed my niece over with a packed bag and a typed medication schedule because Marissa was her mother, and that sentence still meant something to me. I was still the fixer, and God help me, I was very good at it. The reunion happened on my front porch, and it was beautiful, and none of it was real. Marissa arrived with Trent trailing behind her like a one-man camera crew. She crouched down with her arms wide, and Ava walked into them because 8-year-olds will always walk into their mother's arms. That is the entire tragedy of 8-year-olds. Trent filmed it from 2 angles. By dinner time, it was online. My sister holding my niece, golden hour light, caption, reunited with my whole heart. After our little scare, I am never letting this girl out of my sight again. Our little scare. She had not once asked to see the incision. She still did not know her surgeon's name, and I would have bet my house on that. The comments poured in the way they always did. Supermom, she is so lucky to have you. Praying for your sweet girl. 2 of those comments came from my own cousins. Here is the thing nobody warns you about a person like my sister. You are not fighting her. You are fighting her audience. The performance was airtight, and every person clapping for it made the truth a little harder to say out loud. I stood on my porch and watched the car pull away, Ava's small face shrinking in the back window, and then I went inside to a house that had gone very quiet. I put the leftover gauze and the children's fever medicine in a bin on the closet shelf beside the coloring books. I told myself the hard part was over. Sister home, crisis past, family photo restored. That is the fixer's definition of a happy ending. It held for exactly 4 days. Then my phone rang at 9 at night, and the name on the screen said Ava. Before I tell you about that phone call, if you have ever sat in a hospital hallway, making calls that should have been someone else's job, tell me where you were in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you want to know what was hiding in that dish towel at the back of a closet, stay with me. Because it is coming, and it changes 3 lives at once. Aunt Renee, can you stay on the phone until I fall asleep? Ava's voice was tiny and businesslike, the way it got when she was managing something far too big for her. Her mom had gone to Trent's for the night. I'm old enough now, she said. I checked the oven twice. An 8-year-old barely a month out of abdominal surgery, alone in an apartment, double-checking the stove like a tiny building superintendent. I stayed on the line until her breathing slowed. Then I lay awake doing math I did not want to do. It was not one night. Over the following 2 weeks, it became a pattern. The 9 o'clock phone calls. The whispered inventories. Can you stay on until I'm asleep? Then the clinic called me. Not her, because I was the number listed on file. Ava had missed her surgical follow-up, the wound check, the one that matters, the one where a professional catches trouble while it is still small. Marissa had simply not shown up and had not returned the reminder calls. I rescheduled it, took a personal day, and drove my niece myself. I did not tell my sister I was doing it, which tells you everything about the groove I had been living in for 20 years. Fix it quietly. Don't wrinkle the picture. At the appointment, the doctor peeled back the dressing and frowned. The site looked irritated, and the bandage had been changed sloppily, folded wrong, taped wrong. "Who has been changing this?" she asked, and Ava said proudly, "I do it myself. I watched a video." The doctor looked at me over her glasses. I looked back, and the quiet thing that had been sitting in my chest since Costa Rica stood up and started pacing. 2 weeks after that, my phone rang at work, and it was Ava's school. She had gone pale and shaky in class and nearly fainted. She was running a fever. Could I come? Could I come? Because the school had already tried her mother twice and gotten nothing. Marissa was 2 hours away at what her posts called a brand retreat, learning to align things. I clocked out mid-shift and broke the speed limit gently the whole way there. At the hospitals, her second emergency visit in 2 months, doctors diagnosed a superficial infection at the incision site. Treatable, antibiotics, monitoring, not life-threatening. But treatable is a word that carries a lot of quiet weight, because what it actually meant was that a child's surgical wound had been neglected long enough to get infected, and every adult in that building knew it. While Ava slept off the fever with a line in her arm, my sister finally texted back. "I have a lot going on. Just take her. I'm slammed this weekend. Just take her, like a package, like a coat she had left somewhere by accident." I sat in that emergency bay and read the message maybe 30 times. And I felt 20 years of excuses for my sister quietly get up and leave the room. She's stressed. She's overwhelmed. She loves in her own way. What was left once they were gone was very simple and very cold. Hospitals are full of mandated reporters. So are schools. 2 emergency visits, a mother unreachable both times. The system noticed. It made its records, and it did exactly what it is built to do, and none of it needed my permission. 2 days later, Ava's school counselor called my cell and said the thing that changed the entire weather of my life. "Can we talk about Ava?" Not on school lines. Ms. Delgado met me at a coffee shop 2 towns over, which tells you exactly how carefully people move when they are worried about a child and a lawsuit at the same time. She slid a piece of paper across the table, face down, like contraband. It was a drawing from a classroom assignment. My family. Ava had drawn a house with big windows and smoke curling from the chimney. On the porch stood a woman in scrubs, a cat that I recognized as my neighbor's Tabby, and Ava herself holding the woman's hand. No mother anywhere on the page. "She asks to stay late in the art room," Ms. Delgado said. "She told the aide she doesn't like getting home early. She let that sit. We've documented what we're required to document." I just thought a family member should understand the shape of things. The shape of things. I drove home and sat at my kitchen table with an actual notebook, spiral bound, the kind I use for nursing recertifications. I started at the beginning. The date Marissa left for Costa Rica, the date of the rupture, the verbal consent from the swim-up bar, witnessed and charted, every 9 o'clock phone call, the missed follow-up, the infected incision. Just take her. I'm slammed this weekend. Dates, times, witnesses. I have charted 1,000 nights for strangers. That was the night I started charting for my own family. Somewhere past midnight, I did the arithmetic I had been avoiding. In the 8 weeks since her surgery, Ava had slept at my house 31 nights. 31, out of an address her mother's social media had never once mentioned. I closed the notebook and sat with my hands flat on the cover, understanding that I was no longer taking notes. I was building something. The caseworker's name was Diane Whitfield, and she visited Marissa's apartment on a Thursday, following up on reports filed by the hospital and the school. Reports I had not filed, a fact that would matter to exactly no one in my family. By all accounts, Marissa performed beautifully. The apartment was scrubbed, the refrigerator suddenly full, a scented candle burning like a stage light. But medical records do not take a shine to candles. The chart said what it said: 2 emergency visits. A mother out of the country for one and unreachable for the other. A surgical wound tended to by a child with a how-to video. Diane wrote things down, thanked her, and left. And my sister, once that meeting ended, did the thing she does best. She got ahead of the story. By nightfall, she had called our mother, both of our aunts, and a cousin I had not spoken to since a wedding. The story was this. Renee called the state on me. Renee has always been jealous. Renee is trying to take my daughter. My phone started buzzing at 7 and did not stop. My mother's call was the one I answered. "How could you sick the government on your own sister?" Carol demanded. I told her I had not, that hospitals and schools are legally required to report, that nobody needed me to see what was already visible from space. She was not listening. You're tearing this family apart. Renee, whatever her faults, she's her mother. There it was again, the bell with its one note, I said. Mom, ask me what the reports actually say. Ask me one single question about Ava. She hung up. Near 10 that night, a text arrived from Marissa. Sugar sweet, no context at all. Come get her tonight and grab some school clothes from my place. Keys under the mat. Even the dog knows when a treat is actually a trap. But I went anyway. Ava was there, backpack already zipped, coat already on, like a kid who had learned to always be ready. I went into Marissa's bedroom to grab clothes, and I was folding a sweater when I felt a small hand close around two of my fingers. Aunt Renee. Ava's voice dropped to a whisper. I found something. I put it back so she wouldn't know. She led me to her mother's closet, rose up on her toes, and slid something out from under a stack of folded sweaters on the top shelf. It had been wrapped in an old dish towel, hidden the way people hide things from cleaning crews and from children, which is to say, not well enough. Inside was a bundle of envelopes bound with a rubber band. Birthday cards. The postmarks stretched back 6 years, one for every year, all mailed from the same small town in Wisconsin, every single one unopened, and across most of them in my sister's rounded handwriting, returned to sender. Except she had never actually returned them. She had kept them stacked like trophies in a closet her own daughter could reach with a step stool. The sender's name was printed neatly in the corner of every envelope. Daniel Cross Eva was watching my face with careful 8-year-old eyes. Mom says my dad forgot me, she said, the same words from my couch 2 months earlier, except now they were standing in front of 6 years of evidence to the contrary. I did what I do. I stayed calm. I photographed every postmark on my phone, and I put the bundle back exactly where it had been living. What I did not know as we drove away was that Ava had already made her own move. Somewhere between the closet and the car, one of those envelopes had migrated into her backpack. It turns out my niece is a Callahan. We document things all the way home. One question rode in the passenger seat with me. What else had my sister returned to sender? 48 hours later, 2 police officers knocked on my front door on a Saturday evening. Ava and I were making grilled cheese, and she was in charge of flipping. I opened the door with a spatula still in my hand, and the older officer, gray at the temples, said words I will hear for the rest of my life. Ma'am, we have a report that you took a child from her mother, without permission, kidnapping. My sister had told police that I had kidnapped her daughter. While I stood there absorbing that, my phone was already lighting up on the counter, because Marissa had posted too, a black and white photo of her own folded hands, caption, "Pray for us. Family can hurt you the deepest. I can't say more yet." 200 comments and climbing. Behind me I heard the smallest sound, Ava sitting down slowly at the top of the stairs, arms wrapped around her knees. She had heard everything. This next part is the part I want you to hear, because it is the part that saved me. I did not yell. I did not defend myself on the porch. 20 years of staying calm during emergencies turns out to be excellent training for the night your own sister calls the police on you. I invited the officers inside. I offered them coffee. One accepted. I flipped Ava's grilled cheese so it would not burn. Then I picked up my phone, opened my messages, and slid it across the kitchen table. Just take her. I'm slammed this weekend. Come get her tonight. Keys under the mat. Then I set the blue spiral notebook down beside it, the dates, the times, the whole tidy architecture of my sister's own words. The older officer, Officer Reyes, read it once, then read it again slower, then looked up and said the sentence that told me exactly how the next 6 months were going to go. Ma'am, he said, tapping the screen, we see this more than you'd think. He gestured between the texts and the notebook. There's no crime here, and everyone in this kitchen knows it. You cannot kidnap a child her mother texted you to come pick up. They stayed 20 minutes, spoke gently to Ava about grilled cheese, wrote their report, and left. No charges. Case closed, legally speaking. But Fall Creek is a small town, and small towns do not read police reports. They read vibes. Somebody's cousin works dispatch, and somebody's cousin talks. By Wednesday, a version of the story had crawled into my own hospital. Pediatric nurse under investigation for taking a child. By Friday, HR had invited me to a meeting containing the word temporarily. Temporarily reassigned off the pediatric floor, pending nothing in particular. Optics. Denise fought for me in that meeting and lost. Then found me in the parking lot afterward, furious on my behalf, which I will never forget. I sat in my driveway a long while, understanding what my sister had done. She had taken the one arena where I was untouchable, my work, my competence, my reputation with children, and put a smudge on it with one phone call that cost her absolutely nothing. That was the day I stopped mourning the sister I grew up with, But here is the twist she handed me without ever knowing it. Her false report was now a public record, dated, filed, and dismissed. Every lie she told from that point forward would be told on paper, to institutions with consequences. She was building my case for me. Attorney Wendy Ashcroft had practiced family law in our county for nearly 30 years, and her office smelled like paper and burnt coffee, which I found strangely comforting. She read my blue notebook cover to cover in about 20 minutes, flipping pages with a pencil, saying nothing. Then she took off her glasses and looked at me the way surgeons look at families. I can file for emergency temporary guardianship on this, she said. Hospital records, the caseworker's findings, an unreachable parent, a false police report. It's a strong petition, but you need to understand what filing it means. She leaned forward. You'll be suing your sister. There is no version of this where you get to stay the nice one afterward. Your family will pick sides, and you already know which side they'll pick. I looked down at the table. Beside the notebook sat the envelope from Ava's backpack, the birthday card with the Wisconsin postmark, still unopened, Daniel Cross printed neatly in the corner. I had not opened it. It was not mine to open, but I had carried it into that office the way some people carry a saint's medal. I thought about Ava checking the oven twice. I thought about she's just being dramatic. I picked up Wendy's pen, signed, and heard my own voice say, "Okay, then I won't be the nice one." To 20 years of keeping the peace ended with a single signature. My mother called that night, her voice shaking. "You're stealing your own sister's child." For the first time in my adult life, I did not apologize to her. I did not manage her. I did not fix it. I said, "No, Mom, I'm answering a door she keeps refusing to answer." The emergency hearing was set 9 days out. Family court is nothing like television. It is a small beige room closed to the public whenever a child is involved, presided over by a tired person in a robe who has heard everything twice. Ours was Judge Patterson. Marissa arrived in a soft gray dress with a tissue already in hand, costume and prop both. Her testimony was a masterpiece of the form. Single mother doing her best, a jealous younger sister who had always wanted her life, who took advantage of a medical emergency to play house with my daughter. She cried at all the right moments. She has always been good at this. Then it was our turn, and Wendy did not perform anything at all. She handed up records. The surgical consent given verbally from a swim-up bar, witnessed and time-stamped. The nearly 3 weeks abroad while an 8-year-old recovered from peritonitis. The missed wound check, the infection. The 31 nights at my house in 8 weeks. The school's documentation. The caseworker's findings. The police report my sister had filed herself, dismissed within the hour, her own texts entered as exhibits. I testified for about 11 minutes, mostly yes or no answers, and I looked at the judge the entire time, exactly like Wendy told me to. Judge Patterson granted me temporary guardianship 90 days with a review scheduled and supervised visitation for Marissa, plus a court-ordered parenting evaluation. Not a victory lap. A tourniquet. The system was still holding the door open for my sister, and I want to be fair. That is exactly how it should work. Outside on the courthouse steps, Wendy lit a cigarette and squinted at the parking lot. "Temporary means temporary," she said. At the review, the court asks a much bigger question. Is there anyone else? Any other family? She looked at me sideways. Is there? Quick pause, because people always ask why I did not scream, did not post, did not fight fire with fire. I am a nurse. In an emergency, we do not shout. We chart. If you have ever stayed calm while being cast as the villain, type the word charted in the comments so I know who my people are. And subscribe, because that unopened birthday card is about to change everything. My sister responded to losing in a courtroom by winning everywhere else. The post turned biblical. Long captions about betrayal, about snakes at your own table, about people who smile at you while planning your downfall. She never used my name. She did not have to. Her followers did the digging themselves, and my inbox filled with strangers calling me a child stealer, a jealous spinster, and worse. 2 women I had known since high school quietly unfollowed me. At the grocery store, a neighbor stared at me a beat too long over the produce. I kept my head down and kept charting. Then my sister made her first real mistake since the police report. On a Tuesday, outside her scheduled visitation window, she showed up at Ava's school at pickup time, walked past the front office, and had Ava by the hand in the bus loop before the assistant principal caught up to them. She told the school she was allowed. I'm her mother. The school, bless its laminated protocols, had the court order on file. They walked Ava back inside, called me, and called the court. Violation documented. Number 1. Judge Patterson issued a formal warning and tightened the visitation schedule, and somewhere in a filing cabinet, a folder about my sister got a little bit thicker. Ava was quiet at dinner that night. She flipped her grilled cheese and did not eat it. At bedtime, she asked me, if she's not allowed, why did she come? I gave her the truest answer I had, because being told no is new for her. Then, near midnight, my phone buzzed. My mother. Come to the house. Your sister's here. She's not okay. I went, because 20 years of being the fixer does not come off with one signature. My mother's living room, midnight, Marissa on the good couch, with a wine glass and ruined mascara, holding a framed photo off the hallway shelf. The two of us as girls, matching white dresses, matching curled hair, matching smiles that never quite reached anyone's eyes. Easter, some year or another. She looked up at me, and for once there was no camera in the room, and she knew it. You think I don't love her? She said, not really a question. Nobody ever taught me the part when the camera's off, Renee. Mom clapped when we smiled. That was it. That was the whole class. For one long moment I saw it whole. My sister at 8 years old, learning that love was applause, learning it from a woman who had learned it from somebody else before her. A relay race of women handing down a baton with nothing inside it. My anger sat down. Something sadder took its chair. I almost reached for her. Then Marissa wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand, and her voice came back with its edges sharpened again. Anyway, my lawyer says judges always come home to the mother, whatever your little notebook says. She set our childhood face down on the coffee table. She's her mother, she said, meaning herself in the third person, like a slogan. Everyone knows. That I stood in my mother's doorway and understood I was looking at grief with no funeral. My sister was alive, and I was never getting her back, because the person I missed had possibly never existed at all. I drove home and kept my face dry until my own driveway. Then I charted. The card got opened on a Thursday, in the office of Ava's therapist, because some doors a child should get to open with a professional in the room. Ava peeled the envelope like it was made of glass. Inside, a cartoon fox holding balloons and handwriting that was careful in the way men's handwriting gets careful when it matters. Happy 9th birthday, Ava Bug. I hope you still like drawing. I put in a photo of Waffles. He sleeps on my work boots. I love you, Dad. A photo of a scruffy orange dog on a pair of steel-toed boots slid onto the carpet. Ava read the card 3 times, then said quietly, to no one in particular, he knows I like drawing. Meanwhile, Wendy had been doing lawyer things, and lawyer things turn up paper. Daniel Cross, 39, industrial electrician, 10 years at the same Wisconsin company. 6 years earlier, he had filed for visitation in his own county. The case died on the vine. Marissa moved twice, without leaving a forwarding address. Service failed at bad addresses. Hearings got continued into mush, and one filing claimed, with no report or witness behind it, that he frightened her. It was never tested. It did not have to be. It just made everything slower and more expensive, until a man wiring factories ran out of money to fight a target he could no longer even locate. The support payments never stopped, though. Automatic, quiet, through the state, 6 years running, and every single April, a card. Wendy laid it all out on her desk and squared the edges. Renee, she said, before you feel good about this, understand what it does to your case. Here is the law, plainly, the way she gave it to me with the door closed. When a court decides where a child lives, blood runs in a line. Parents first, always, before grandparents, long before aunts. A fit biological father who wants his daughter outranks the most devoted aunt on the planet. Right now, she said, you're winning. Mother's compromised, you're the stable placement. The 90-day review is close to a formality. But if Daniel Cross is who this paperwork says he is, and we bring him in, he does not slot into your case, Renee. He replaces it. Best outcome, you become the beloved aunt with generous visitation. You will not be her guardian. She let that land. And if you sit on it, you're the only one connecting these dots. His letters keep getting returned. He has no idea his case is winnable now. Nobody would ever know. She was not tempting me. She was simply doing her job, making sure her client could see the entire board. I drove home the long way. Ava was asleep in the lavender room I had painted back in July, a color we picked together off a paint card called Quiet Evening. Her drawings hung taped in rows on the wall, houses, windows, chimney smoke. The fox card stood open on the nightstand like a tiny tent. Everything I wanted was in that room, breathing slow, 10 steps from where I stood in the hallway with my keys still in my hand. Keeping her would have been so easy. All I had to do was exactly what my sister had done for 6 years. Nothing. Instead, I went downstairs, opened my laptop, and typed Daniel Cross Electrician Wisconsin into the search bar. I did not just drive to Wisconsin on a feeling. I am not built that way. Wendy ran him properly first. Clean record, 1 speeding ticket, 8 years old, employment verified, 10 years. Support payments verified, unbroken, 6 years. Through the state registry, from a man with no real reason to hope he would ever be anything to his daughter besides a line item. Then came the Thursday session, where Ava's therapist showed me the newest drawing. The house. the windows, me in my scrubs, the neighbor's tabby cat, Ava herself. And at the very edge of the paper, half off the page, a new figure, a tall shape, pencils only, not yet colored in. She left him room, the therapist said in that level, trained voice. Kids almost always leave room. That Saturday, I got up before sunrise and drove 5 hours north with the thermos and the radio off. I did not call ahead. A phone call can be rehearsed, and I needed a face doing what faces actually do when they are genuinely surprised. Rehearsal was my sister's medium. I wanted the opposite of my sister. His house was small and squared away, edges freshly mowed, a porch swing with the chains oiled, a work truck in the driveway with ladder racks bolted to the bed. I sat in my car across the street for a full 5 minutes, hands on the wheel like it was going somewhere. Then I walked up and knocked. Boots inside coming. The door opened, and a big man with tired eyes and a scruffy orange dog winding around his ankles looked at a stranger on his porch. On a Saturday morning, and I said it plainly. "Mr. Cross, my name is Renee Callahan. I'm Ava's aunt." I watched his knees go loose. His hand found the doorframe and held on. His kitchen table had a coffee ring pattern like tree rings, and on it, between us, he set a battered metal box that used to hold holiday cookies. "I need you to see this before you decide anything about me," Daniel said. Inside, paper photocopies, a copy of every card he had ever mailed, made at the library before he sent each original, dated on the back in pencil, so that someday, if he ever got to sit across from her, she would know he had not skipped a single year. 6 cards sent, 6 copies kept, 300 miles apart from a bundle wrapped in a dish towel. Neither box knew the other existed until I stood in that kitchen holding both stories at once. He talked for an hour, and none of it was a performance, and all of it matched Wendy's paperwork exactly. The visitation case that starved to death, the moves with no forwarding address, the filing that called him frightening. His hands flattened on the table when he reached that part, and he stared at them like they belonged to someone the court had simply invented. "I stopped fighting in court," he said. "I couldn't afford to find her twice a year. I never stopped writing. Here is the moment I made my decision, though I did not say it out loud yet. In an entire hour, he never once asked what was in it for him, never asked what this would cost him, never spoke badly about my sister in front of a stranger. He asked one question first, before anything else, hand-gripping the chair the same way it had gripped the door frame. "Is she safe right now?" Driving home in the dark, I finally said the true thing out loud to the windshield. I had not found a witness for my case. I had found her father, and father's outrank aunts. We did it the right way, because the right way was the only gift I had left to give her. Daniel filed in our county for custody, and Wendy walked his attorney through everything. Ava's therapist prepared her over 2 careful sessions, and on a Thursday at 4 in the afternoon, in a small room with a couch and a sand tray, my niece met her father for 45 supervised minutes. He brought the cookie tin, he set it on the low table and lifted the lid. Ava, who trusts documents more than she trusts words, because look at her family, went through those photocopies one at a time. Then she unzipped her backpack and pulled out the real card, the fox with the balloons, and laid it beside its own copy, matching them, auditing 6 years the way an 8-year-old audits things, lips moving slightly as she checked each one. The room was very quiet. The first thing my niece ever said to her father, after 9 years apart, was this: "You spelled Ava Bug the same way every single time." And Daniel Cross, 240 pounds of industrial electrician, cried the way certain men cry. No sound at all, just his shoulders, holding a juice box the therapist had handed him and not knowing where to set it down. I watched through the observation glass and felt 2 things at once all the way through, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. Joy, real joy for her. And underneath it, arriving right on schedule, the cold arithmetic of everything I had started. Every minute in that room was quietly writing me out of the middle of her story. Word travels fast in a family like mine. By Sunday, my sister knew. 14 missed calls from Marissa on Sunday night. I counted them the way you count anything you plan to eventually show a judge. I did not pick up. The post started an hour later. "They've let a stranger near my daughter, a man I protected her from. This is what my family thinks of my protection." Protected. That word carried a lot of weight, considering the dish towel. Then, on Monday, she went past posting. She drove to the school at lunchtime, slipped through a side door propped open for a delivery, and got as far as the cafeteria hallway, got her hand around Ava's wrist near the milk line before the assistant principal stepped between them. The school went into its lockdown protocol. Police came. It was calm, and it was terrible, the way schools have sadly gotten very good at. Ava did not scream. She did something worse. She went still and polite, violation number 2. This one with officers present and a child in hand. The court's response was swift and by the book. a civil protective order, no contact with Ava or the school, and with the final custody hearing approaching, a closed proceeding involving a minor, Marissa would attend only through her attorney. Contempt now hung over her like weather. She had argued for months that I was the danger, and every single documented thing she did kept quietly voting the other way. That night, Ava asked to sleep with the light on, for the first time since the hospital. I sat in the chair by her bed until morning, my blue notebook open on my knee. I did not write anything. Some nights you do not chart. You just stay. Tuesday morning, a letter arrived at Wendy's office from Marissa's attorney. Subject line, settlement. One condition, no Daniel. The conference room at Marissa's lawyer's office had a table too large for 4 people and air conditioning set to intimidate. My sister wore soft gray again. We had not been in a room together since our mother's midnight living room, and she did not look at me while her attorney read the offer slowly like a menu at an expensive restaurant. Here were the terms. Marissa would voluntarily consent, no trial, to permanent guardianship of Ava. To me, full legal forever. The exact thing I had wanted so badly I had painted a bedroom lavender for it. The family would issue a joint statement calling it a loving decision made together for Ava's sake. Everyone's face saved, everyone's holidays intact. In exchange, every reference to Daniel Cross came out of the case file. The cards, the postmarks, the dead visitation case, withdrawn, and I would decline to support his petition. Her attorney folded his hands. Everyone keeps what they love, Miss Callahan. Your niece stays with you. Isn't that what this was always about? And there it was, laid out on polished wood. My deepest want, gift-wrapped, one signature away, and the price was becoming my sister. Keep the child, bury the truth, call it protection. It is the family recipe. I was raised on it. I looked at the offer. I let the silence stretch long, and it was Marissa who could not stand it. She never could stand a quiet room. Take the deal, Renee. You win. Isn't that what you wanted? To be the better mother. I said it slowly, because I had waited 6 months to know it this clearly. She was never being dramatic. She was being abandoned, and I refused to abandon her politely with paperwork, the way this family handles everything. I slid my blue notebook across the table to Wendy, along with the folder of postmark photographs, copies for Daniel's attorney, all of it, and I'll testify in support of his petition. My sister came out of her chair, and her palm hit the table, and for the first time in 35 years, I watched her perform absolutely nothing at all. You're giving her away after everything you did to take her. Take. Give away. A child in my sister's grammar is a thing that simply changes hands. I stood, pushed in my chair, and at the door I said the last thing I have ever said to her face. That's the difference between us, Marissa. I never wanted to keep her. I wanted her to be safe. The final hearing came almost exactly 7 months after I stood in that hospital hallway listening to a voicemail greeting with a surgeon waiting behind me. Same beige courtroom, same tired robe, doors closed to the public because a child's life is not a show, a principle my family had needed nearly a decade and a court order to finally encounter. The record did most of the talking. Diane Whitfield testified about her findings, flat and fair. The school's files spoke. Dr. Okafor's chart spoke, including a time-stamped verbal consent with pool music playing in the background. Daniel's attorney walked the court through 6 years of unbroken support payments and 6 postmarked envelopes. I watched Judge Patterson pick up one of the photographs and study it for a long moment, the way you look at something you intend to remember. Then it was my turn. I answered everything, including the question that costs the most. When Daniel's own attorney asked, gently, did I want to raise Ava myself? I said with everything I have. That's not the same as what's best for her. The judge looked at me a second longer than the question required, and wrote something down. Near the end, Judge Patterson met with Ava privately in chambers, with the guardian ad litem present. Standard practice. No parents, no aunts. Whatever was said in that room stayed in that room, exactly as it should, and I will never ask. But when the clerk walked her back out to me, my niece was holding the Fox card in both hands, flat against her chest, label facing out, like a badge she had decided to wear. Marissa, by order, was present only through her attorney. The protective order kept her out of any room her daughter would occupy. She came to the courthouse anyway. We were all called back at 10 the next morning for the ruling. Judge Patterson read it in the plain voice of a person doing load-bearing work. Custody of Ava to her father, Daniel Cross, whose parental rights stood established, and whose relocation plan to Indiana was already filed and funded. Court-ordered continuity. Ava's therapy continues. Her school stays her school. I had to hold the rail when that part was entered as an order. Ongoing visitation with her aunt, Renee Callahan, who is further named standby guardian. Marissa received supervised visitation contingent on completing a parenting course and a therapy review in 1 year. no termination of her rights. The court left her a road back, marked and lit, the same road she had left unwalked for years. I want to be honest that mercy is correct, and it still made my jaw tighten. Then it was over, the way enormous things end, with a gavel sound no louder than a stapler, everyone gathering their coats. In the hallway, morning light came through the tall windows onto the marble floor, and there she was, my sister, outside the closed doors of a courtroom she was not permitted to enter, holding her phone with a story half filmed on the screen. She had been recording herself outside the courthouse, and she had stopped, and there was no caption in the world for this one, and she knew it, and that was the first true thing her face had done in years. Mascara down both cheeks. She saw me and said, "You took everything from me." 20 years of the fixer rose up in my throat, with 20 apologies ready to go. I let them all pass by, like watching a bus you are finally done riding pull away. "No," I said. "You returned it to sender," and I walked past her down the steps, out into the bright autumn morning, to where Daniel Cross was crouched on the sidewalk at eye level with his daughter. And my niece was showing her father a drawing she had made that morning, and nobody anywhere was filming anything at all. It has been 7 weeks since that morning. Daniel rented a house 20 minutes from Fall Creek. Any electrician, it turns out, can fix things anywhere. Ava started the new school year with the same teacher, the same art room, the same bus stop. Her room at my house is still her room. That detail was written into the parenting plan at Daniel's insistence, not mine, which tells you exactly what kind of man showed up once he finally got the chance. Recovery in kids is not a movie montage. It is small, and it is measurable, and I measure it, because charting is love in my native language. She sleeps with the light off again. She opens the refrigerator without apologizing to it first. Her therapist moved her from weekly sessions to every other week. The newest drawing taped to Daniel's refrigerator shows the house with the big windows, and the figure that used to float half off the edge of the page is standing on the porch now, colored all the way in, holding a dog. My mother came by Daniel's house once in October, with a casserole and no apology. She stood in the doorway a long moment, taking inventory, and on her way out she touched Ava's hair and said, "Your mother loves you in her way." Nobody argued with her. The sentence just sounded different in that kitchen. Smaller. Like a radio playing in another room. Old songs do not stop playing. You just stop dancing to them. Marissa came to her first supervised visit 20 minutes late, filmed a story in the parking lot before she even walked in, and spent most of the hour telling Ava about a trip she was planning. She missed the second visit entirely without calling. No one editorialized. The file simply grew, the way files do, one quiet page at a time. As for me, the hospital put me back on the pediatric floor the week after the ruling, with a stiff little apology from HR that Denise framed as a joke and hung in the break room. And on Sunday nights, there is dinner at Daniel's. Last Sunday, Ava set the table and put out 4 plates for 3 people. When her father raised an eyebrow, she straightened the extra chair and announced the new house rule like a judge reading an order. "The empty chair is for whoever comes back." Daniel looked at me across the table, and neither of us said anything, because there was nothing left to fix. I am not her mother. I never wanted to be. I am the aunt who showed up. And in this family, we finally know exactly how much that is worth. I spent 20 years believing that if I kept my family looking whole, it would stay whole. But a family is not the people who share your name, or your blood, or your photographs. It is whoever keeps coming back. And the day I stopped protecting the picture and started protecting the child, I finally understood the one thing my sister was never taught. Love is not a title you hold. It is a door you keep answering. That is my story. 1 ruptured appendix, 1 bundle of returned birthday cards wrapped in a dish towel, and an empty chair that finally means something good. If you have ever been called the villain for protecting a child, take this as your sign. Keep showing up and keep writing it down. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Drop a comment below. Tell me the moment in this story that hit you hardest, and hit subscribe, because Hartley Stories has a new one waiting for you next week.